Hey there, welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. Today we are going to be working on this rare bird. This is a 1947 Letourneau D4 carry-all scraper. I picked this machine up last year after years of searching for one. I finally found this one and made a deal on it and brought it home here. Somebody had started to restore this thing and unfortunately I don't think they ever completed it before they passed away. So I went into a little bit more detail on the first video on this machine about what it was designed for and everything, but the long and short of it is that it was originally designed for World War II to be put into glider planes and then dropped into advanced remote locations where they could use teams of these little scrapers and small dozers to create primitive runways where you could get bigger machines in to make the full-size runways. So these were used a lot in the Pacific Island hopping campaign from my understanding, but they didn't see much action elsewhere. In doing some research on this machine from the last video, I did come across some really cool archived magazine pictures and articles on Letourneau's website for when they were building these things for the war, which is pretty cool. So if you're interested in that history, you can pause the video. I'm gonna put those up here real quick. This particular model, being in 1947, was never designed for Army use. This one was civilian production. From my understanding, basically little to no changes between the civilian and the Army models. But we're getting off topic here. The previous owner had started to restore this thing and had it almost back together, and well, I guess it was pretty much back together, but I don't think they ever actually got it running and functioning since they got the paint job on it. And unfortunately, they passed away before they could ever see that through. In the last video, you guys saw me get this thing back here to the shop and dive on in and try to get it running. We were able to get it running, but unfortunately we were not able to get it steering. So it'll drive back and forth right now, but it will not steer left or right. And we're gonna dive into that whole system today and figure out what we can do to hopefully make it steer, because this thing is pretty much a paperweight until it can steer. So our mighty little Letourneau here is powered by a 4-cylinder Continental engine, and it runs decent. I didn't play with it a ton to get it super dialed in, but it does run until we have it steering. I'm not even gonna waste my time trying to get it to run perfect. I think we're gonna be mostly focused back here today, and you can't see a lot of what we're gonna be working on from this perspective. It's hard to get you in there. The steering system on this thing, rather than being mechanical like say our D4 dozer over here, basically the way a dozer like this would work is you have your drive line comes back into a bevel gear here, and then you just have left and right clutches, and you mechanically release the clutch on either side to steer. Pretty simple. For whatever reason, Letourneau wanted to make it a little more complicated, in my opinion, than it needed to be, and they made all that hydraulic rather than mechanical. So while using hydraulics might sound simple in theory, we're talking about 1947 technology here. And now that technology is 78 years old. So things don't work maybe quite as well as they used to. So the last time I tried to work on this thing, I did get it somewhat working. I think the left clutch was working, but I think the clutch itself is kind of stuck. I believe the hydraulic system was working as it was taking the tension off the clutch, but I believe the friction plates themselves were actually kind of hung up. If we can get it working a little more reliably, I think we could probably just give it a good bump into something, and those clutches might kind of pop free and allow it to steer. So I'm gonna attempt to break down how this steering system works in simplistic terms here, as I understand it. You pull back on one of these steering clutch levers, it pushes fluid, and it should theoretically release the steering clutch on that side. At the same time, as it's releasing the clutch, it also closes a check valve, which is what I believe these units are here. It closes the check valve and limits the brake function to the side that has the clutch released. So if you were to pull the left steer clutch and push the brake pedal, it would only apply the brakes to the left wheel. And vice versa, if you were to pull the right clutch, it should only release the right clutch and apply the right brake if you were to hit the pedal. Basically, it's the same on a dozer. If you pull the clutch, you'll slowly start to gradually turn just because you've taken away power from one side of the tracks. And if you want to turn sharply, then you have to apply the brake. Well, they're basically doing the same thing here. It's just a little bit more complicated because we're using hydraulics and check valves and master cylinders and slave cylinders and all that stuff. So I get it, but at the same time, 78 years later, it's a bit tricky to get all working right. Also, it seems like any leaks introduce air into the system, which limits its functionality. And I think step one today is going to be to basically remove the whole system from the machine here. I need to get these master cylinders up out of here so that we can put new seals in them, because they're just puking oil, and I don't think it's ever going to work like that. Also, this thing sat out, unfortunately, for most of the winter, and I didn't realize until I pulled it in here today that it didn't have a shifter boot on it. So I'm certain that we got all kind of water down in our transmission. So this is nothing fancy, luckily. It's just a standard run-of-the-mill transmission, albeit I don't know what model. I'm not super concerned about that. I'm sure it didn't freeze and crack or anything. I doubt it even hurt any bearings, but I'm sure we got water in the oil, so we're gonna drain it out, have to clean it up. We did service the engine last time, so it has fresh oil and stuff in it, I believe. I'm actually gonna have to reference the video myself. Got too many projects on the go for me to remember every little thing. But I'm pretty sure the engine should be fine. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive on in and start removing this stuff, if we can. This is one of those machines that's kind of deceptive to work on, because you can see everything and it looks like it's really easy and simple to get to, and then you actually go to try to put a wrench on something or get your hand in there, and man, not as easy as it looks. It looks to me like I'm going to have to take these things off to get them out of the way to remove the master cylinders anyhow. So I'm going to pull this guy off first, have a little look-see, if I can figure out what's going on there. Oh, that's weird. Whole bunch of water just came out of that. I have no idea how water would have gotten into the system. I guess if the seals are that bad in our master cylinder that water was just running down and getting into the system, that's not good. I mean, we're gonna clean them up and rebuild them anyway, but really wasn't expecting that. So that was steering clutch fluid that goes in the top of this valve, and in the bottom of this valve, I believe it's hooked to the brake system. And I don't know what kind of magic happens in between those two inside of that little canister, but something happens. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. I can see this fitting. I can even get a wrench onto this one, which isn't bad. But actually getting your hand in here and being able to have enough room to twist a nut off of that line, it's tough. This particular one isn't horrid, but you gotta really twist your body and get your hand positioned in there correctly. And what you guys can't see right now is I'm balancing on my toes on the blade arm to be able to get my arm into this position. There we go. Yes, finally. We got her out of there. And, well, that hole is definitely intentionally drilled there. I'm not sure what that's about. Moving back here to the clutch master cylinders now. There's 3 lines that go into each master cylinder. Oh no. This thing's not wanting to break loose, it's wanting to twist this line, and this line is a very special soldered. I don't know if you guys can see from where you guys are sitting, but this line comes up here and basically makes a U shape and goes down to the other side and then gets soldered onto this line here. I do not want to damage that. Hey, I got it. Pretty sure the reservoir is empty, but we're going to find out here in a second. Don't drop it. Don't drop it. There we go. Got it. All that holds the little master cylinders in there is this bolt with a wedge on it. I still have one pin to remove up here on the linkage, and that master cylinder should just drop right out. I'll tell you one thing, these things were built for war. The last thing I would want to be doing is working on this thing under fire or in, dangerous conditions, because it is not a fast process. Nothing about working on this thing is easy or quick. All right, come to Papa. Oh, what happened? Oh no. There's a line I missed coming up in the bottom that I couldn't even see. How the heck am I going to get to that thing? Ah, good news, we don't have to. That whole line can come out with it. Man, this is a bag of worms. Copper and steel worms. There we go. Whew. Oh, buddy. Thank goodness. This thing is making me very hangry, so I better eat something before I start smashing it with a hammer. Pretty sure, yep. Aha, we got a black label in the stack today. Filet mignon, boys. It's a good day in the shop. Well, nobody's ever accused me of missing any meals. Today is no exception, thanks to Factor. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals straight to your door. I'm sure you've heard me drone on about how I hate doing dishes and prepping food and going to grocery stores. Well, Factor eliminates all that. With a few clicks from your phone or your computer, you can dial up just as many meals as you want each week. With a Factor subscription, you can choose from over 80 revolving meals each week. There are tons of options, no matter what your fancy is. They have everything from Mediterranean to Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, veggies. Not only do they have lunch and dinner options, they also have breakfast covered, as well as snacks, smoothies, juices, you name it. Factor's got it going on, and every single thing I have ever tried from them has been absolutely delicious. Oh, I could have cut that with a fork. Oh man, that is killer. I can't believe how tender that is. Personally, I've been enjoying Factor for almost 2 years now. Their meal selection has been fantastic, but they really outdid themselves now. They have doubled the size of their menu. Now they have twice the protein meals, twice the seafood meals. It's almost overwhelming how many meals there are to choose from each week. So if you're still holding out, you're still on the fence and you haven't tried Factor, now's a great time. Head to factor75.com, use my code CREEKFB50 to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for an entire year. That's factor75.com, code Creek FB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for an entire year. A whole year, Roscoe. Did you hear that? That's a deal that's going to be hard to beat. All right, Roscoe says lunch is over. Back to work. All right, so I think our biggest problem with these is the seal that's right here where the piston slides. The seal that's right here where the piston slides in and out. You can hear it sucking air, and then when you get it purged with fluid, it just pushes all kind of fluid out of, I think it's this one over here that's the real bad squirter. This one over here isn't much better. You can see these are supposed to be kind of, you know, polished up and I imagine these things are supposed to be kind of polished up and shiny, almost like a hydraulic cylinder rod, but they're not. This one over here is sort of shiny. You can tell it used to be. This one over here is very rusty. I think they could probably benefit from a good polish on the lathe or something. Really, they should probably be re-chromed if we're going to get crazy, but that ain't going to happen before the steam show, so that's out. Let's tear these things apart and see if I can't identify whatever seal I need and get that ordered up. Oh! That sucker is tight. Ugh. The fluid don't look so hot in here. Well, on the piston we just have an O-ring, but there's slots for two, and I only see one. I see a couple water droplets down inside of there where it just really hasn't mixed with the oil yet, but luckily it doesn't look like anything's rusted up, so that's good. One of the other issues here is I believe we're supposed to have like a shifter boot on here, like a rubber boot. That's what this slot here and this groove up here are for, to keep water and stuff from getting into those seals. So I'm gonna have to come up with something. I ordered one for the shifter on the transmission. And when it gets here, I'm going to see if it would work on these things. If it does, I'm going to order a couple more. There we go. All right, well, we might be in luck here. This looks just like it's an O-ring. It doesn't look like there's anything special about it. Now, maybe that's why it's leaking, is because they just put an O-ring in here rather than an actual seal. I do have the parts book, but all it gives is Letourneau parts numbers, so they're not much good in the way of looking up a replacement part, but it'll show me if this is an O-ring in the book or if it's supposed to be like a lip seal, which I would have thought it would have been a lip seal. So I popped it out. It is just an O-ring, which is good news if that's what belongs in there, so fingers crossed on that. But I don't care what you put in there. This piston is so... I hope you guys can hear that. This piston is so rusted and scratched that there is no way you're ever going to get a seal to last in there. It's going to work for about 5 minutes and it's going to start leaking again. So like I said, chroming would be the best thing, but that's not in the cards right now. I do have some spare parts that came with this machine, and I know there's a couple more of these things, but I think they're in worse shape than these ones. I'm gonna go look, and if we have any better pistons than these ones, we're gonna use those. If not, the only other option I really have is to put a good polish on these things and then protect them with those boots, like I was saying.
Oh man, that went way too easy.
Well,
buckle up for that spring when it hits the ceiling.
Moving.
Also, you gotta do this while getting shot at still.
Well, the spring ain't spring-a-thingin'.
So you look right down in it. Right down the barrel.
Shoot me in the head like that guy from No Country for Old Men.
Is that the spring or is the spring in there?
I think the spring's in here. Like you get that, like when you hit it, you can feel that spring resonance. It's in here.
That means that's gonna just leave the chat here.
Yeah, it is. Like you look at it, it's cocked a little bit in the bore.
Point it that way. That does appear to be a seal for the shaft.
Look at that. You just got to beat on it enough.
The right tap. That spring wouldn't even hurt us.
No, that's a baby spring right there.
That's probably why one of them felt like entirely dead.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the wrong spring because it looks bigger than.
No, I just mean that it being stuck.
Could be. Yeah.
Surprisingly good shape.
Yeah, it's not all rusted out or nothing. Yep. There she blows. There's the piston side of things.
Michigan 101 here. Why is that so loud?
It is very loud. Well, it's definitely helping it.
Outside of that, she's cherry.
I think you got the heavy stuff off, honestly. Just like a piece of emery cloth now or something.
Oh, we got more
up.
heavy polishing to do. Must not be very round, or just, I guess, the way it wears when it's this can't turn. Like, it's weird how it's like the streaks of it.
Yeah.
To me.
Maybe it might, well, I don't know. I was going to say it might depend on which way you're pulling on the lever, too. Like, how it puts pressure up here, but there's enough linkages before it that I doubt it.
I don't know. So you just want to like finely polish.
It's going to be a primo sealing surface. So stage 2 of the buffing process here over at
We got
Scrappy.
18 buffing processes.
Scrappy rechroming. We got, you start with yourself a flap disc and then you find yourself
After
a
you
car
get done,
polishing kit.
Gotta say, cleaning some really hard to get pots and pans.
You get your scour pad from the dishes.
Oh yeah.
Operation Get the Scraper to Brownsville.
Frank would be proud. Oh man, we're really honing in on
There's
that.
like barely even any major pits in it.
It's like somebody, took a hammer to it and then brazed it back up.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder, actually, yeah, I wonder if it had like big pitted areas and they just brazed them in.
Yeah. What do we want to go with? Old orange Scotch Brite?
Sure, buddy.
I got Scotch card.
Well, I just took the second check valve apart, and just like the first one, pretty well stuck in there. There we go. So the best thing I think we can really do here for these things is take the brake hone and just give them a little polish on the inside there, try to take any rough spots out of this bore, and if I have the right size O-ring, maybe we'll replace the O-ring, but honestly, these don't look bad. The other bad news comes down here under this piston. This is supposed to be a seal in here, and you can maybe see it a little bit better in this one here. That's supposed to be a seal in the center there, and neither one of them do much sealing anymore. They're pretty well wallered out. So I'm going to try to do some digging here. I have the parts manual, but they're Laterno part numbers, and I don't think those are going to cross anywhere. So I'm going to try to do some digging and see if we can't come up with the proper seals to replace these. Well, I managed to actually get the seal out of the other check valve without completely destroying it, although it does have a chunk taken out of the edge. I'm going to attempt to do the same here in the hopes that I can find replacement parts. Well, yeah, this one's just broke in half. No bueno. No. She kind of split there. Well, I guess I'm going to head over to the Google machine and see if I can't scare up some part numbers for this thing now. Look at this here. I discovered that seal is actually like a metal lip seal. And basically when I pulled the rubber part out, I separated it from, it's supposed to be adhered to this little metal ring. So now that we actually know what type of seal this is, I can stand a now that we actually know what kind of seal we're looking for, I mean, just this rubber thing alone tells me very little. And I didn't understand how it got installed, so that's why upon closer inspection I decided to try to pry this out, and with a little bit of heat I was able to get this ring out. So I can actually just take some measurements now, and we should be able to order us up a lip seal that should serve this purpose well. Well, like so many other projects in my life, specifically the ones in the background that you can see here, the poor little Letourneau has been on and off of the stovetop for a while. It's been backburnered for a few months again. So it's been a minute since I've actually worked on this thing, instantaneous for you guys, but for me, unfortunately, it's been several months. In the course of said several months, apparently I lost a little bit of footage here. Fret not though, faithful viewer. So I did actually rebuild these two master steering cylinders. Basically, I found some better piston type seals for them, and I know I recorded putting them together, and I cannot find the footage to save my life. You guys saw me rebuild that steering cylinder. I put this one together as well. Basically, we just put new O-rings in those. And I came up with some billows covers for these to try to protect the shafts and keep any water from getting down inside of there. I put new O-rings, around the shaft, so it should theoretically keep water or oil from coming in or out of the cylinder, rusting and pitting things up. But the billows covers just take that an extra step further and add a layer of protection. But now that those steering cylinders are rebuilt, that leaves our brake check valves over here. So I've got the parts kind of lined up here. I did have to have Buddy Sam turn these down a little bit because I could not find a seal that fit these anymore. Looking through some old books, that seems like a size that was available, but isn't any longer, unfortunately. You can even see this seal here. I tried to sand it up a little bit. I turned it against the belt sander a little bit, tried to shave her down smooth to make it fit in there before he turned it, but he ended up taking out a fair bit. You can kind of see the lip down in there. So that was never going to happen. I would have worn through the seal entirely by the time it was small enough to fit in there. Pretty straightforward how these go together. I already put new O-rings on these pistons. The piston kind of free floats in here, which is unique. I've never seen that before in anything else. This thing goes like so. The piston goes in first, followed by this plunger thing. And the tip of this plunger right there is actually what does the sealing down in the bottom of this guy here. It's supposed to kind of jam itself down in there and close off that whatever this is coming up in here. I can't remember if that's brake fluid or the clutch fluid. I think it's brake fluid. But that seals off like so. And then just to seal around the shaft is where this seal comes in. It pushes in there. Anyways, we've got all the ingredients. Let's bake this cake. So first thing first here, our little piston puck. I want to put some O-ring lube on that. Doesn't need to be O-ring lube, but it helps. Getting this thing started in here is going to be the hard part. Trying to keep it square as you drop it down in here. Man, that lube helped a lot. Ram her home with that guy. Put a spring on there. This little plate here is more of like a location device as well as a spacer for our spring to sit against. It goes down in there like so, and then this little shoulder here on it engages with the bore on this piece here. Our seal, a regular lip seal like this, is really only meant to hold pressure from one direction. So I don't know which side of things is actually going to have more pressure here in this scenario. I guess this being vented to atmosphere means that there's going to be no pressure on that side of things. Forgot about that. So we should put our seal like so. So there we go, that seal just sits down a little bit below the surface there, and that way this shoulder has a place to kind of engage in. That keeps that all kind of lined up nicely. Since I had to have Sam turn this bore a little bit bigger, I was concerned that now that's not going to center. You see it has a little bit of slop there, which it didn't used to have, but luckily we're also snug on this OD, so once I put it down inside of here and we install it, it should still all line up perfectly. Last thing is I'm putting a little bit of thread sealer on these threads here. I don't think it's necessary, but it sure can't hurt. Putting a little bit of lube on this piston as well. Just make sure we don't tear up that seal. All right, tighten that bad boy down, and that's one check valve rebuilt. Da, 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 da! I have it all back together. And I swear, if this thing doesn't work now, I'm like setting it on fire, or at least pushing it out of here and slapping a for sale sign on it, because I have exhausted my patience for this thing, to say the least. If you guys haven't noticed already, the scenery has changed in the shop quite a bit since this thing has come in here. And that is because I was dreading doing that we just did today. And admittedly, it didn't take as long as I thought it was gonna. It actually went back together easier than it came apart, which is almost never the case. Especially for dealing with a whole bunch of hard lines down there. Trying to get the fittings squared up just right to start the threads is usually a nightmare. But honestly, it all went pretty good. Still took a couple hours, but you know. So all we should have to do now is throw some oil in the reservoir, make sure we have brake fluid in that reservoir still, try to bleed both of those systems out, and hopefully the steering clutches work. Oh, you know what else I forgot? We got to drain that transmission too. I might have said it 20 times by now in this video, but I feel like that still doesn't do it enough justice to complain about how hard it is to work on this thing. and how over it I am. And if this doesn't work, you might not get to see it, but I'm gonna have a come apart if this doesn't work. Okay, we've got our oil. Hopefully we're drawing oil into the master cylinders right now. Probably no way around it. We're going to have to pop these transmission covers back off and get to the clutch bleeders that are down in there. Well, with the cover off of here, now I'm going to have to rotate this wheel until I can see the bleeder. Right now, I see nothing. Right there. You can see we got our brass bleeder right there. I'm gonna get some long needle nose pliers, and I can grab a hold of those wings and crack it loose. At the same time, I'll have to be working the clutch. Hopefully we can purge some air out of this thing. I hope you guys can see it, but I cracked the bleeder loose there. It seems like it stopped now, but there was a few air bubbles coming out there. So I'm gonna go ahead and work the steering clutch now. Oh yeah, all kind of air. There we go. We finally got some oil pushing out. Oh yeah! I can actually see the clutch pack moving down there now. So it's working. Alright, well I'm going to call that side good. Now I just got to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, guys, see the air bubbles coming out of there? Well, I'm starting to really resent this thing. I thought we were going to have it this time. The left clutch here works seemingly like it should. The right clutch, I've done all I can, and it only maybe has 10 or 20% of the pushing capacity required to make that clutch work like it should. I'm hoping I've identified the problem at least, though. So there's the reservoir for the fluid for the clutches. It goes down in that copper pipe down there right below the reservoir, goes down under the firewall, runs back through that top hose, and then goes into that horseshoe shaped line down there, which feeds both of those steering clutches. But that one on the left is pretty wet with oil, and the line is kind of kinked right above it. I don't know if I did it or if it was already like that. I do remember it being wet before we did all this. So I'm kind of thinking it was already damaged, and while I had it out, I guess I should have inspected it better. But it is not sealing up, and I don't know if it's because of the kink, there's like a pinhole in the line, or if the flare on the line is bad under that nut and it's just letting oil come up around it. The only other thing that's going on in here too is right below that nut, the fitting that it actually screws onto is a check valve, and that's designed so that fluid can come from the reservoir and go down into that clutch pump and be pushed back at the clutch, not back into the reservoir. So that check valve could be part of our issue if it's bypassing, letting the fluid basically go back to the reservoir. Not only is that line leaking at the clutch though, it's also leaking on our reservoir side of things. So it's making a mess and it's letting air get into the system potentially. I'm not saying it is for sure, I'm not saying that's our problem, but it could be. So between the check valve and that line, unfortunately, I have to take the line back off of there. While I have it off of there, I'm gonna either rebuild it or fix it. And I'll also pull that check valve out of there and verify that it is doing check valve stuff. I'm gonna shut the camera off while I dissect this thing again though, because if I don't, this will no longer be a family-friendly show. Ha ha ha! Might have found the problem here. All right, so I got the line off and the check valve underneath the line was already loose. Like, very loose. I must not have tightened that thing. I thought I pulled those check valves out to make sure they were working before I assembled this. I must not have tightened them back in there. Well, I'm not saying the check valve wasn't part of the issue, but I found a little more of a smoking gun. The flare underneath that nut has a crack in it. I guess that's from over tightening. Could have been my fault. Don't know. Probably was. I don't believe there's any way I could solder that because it's right where the nut needs to sit, so the solder would just get in the way. So, looks like I'm going to rebuild this line. Alright, so we've changed gears into making this new line, right? And I went and got some copper tubing. I went over to my buddy Sam's because he had a 1/2-inch tubing bender. I bent up a few of these because I figured there was a good chance I was going to ruin them in the process of trying to solder that connection on there. It doesn't look like, you know, regular solder to me. It almost seems like it's brazed on there, but I didn't think you could braze copper. I thought it would get too hot. So, I don't know. I have the pieces to do it, like I said. I think this is the nicest bend I made. But before I even try that though, I started thinking I've got some extra length in these legs basically, like this could go lower and wouldn't be a problem. So if I just cut off these flares as little as possible and then re-flare them, there's a chance that I'll be able to just reuse this line and not have to do that brazing, which I'm so worried about. So I got nothing to lose by doing that. I'm gonna try that first. Basically, I had to cut these flares off anyways to get the nuts off because I'm gonna reuse these long nuts here. So the only effort we may be wasting is just re-flaring these. But if I can get the tool to seat right on here and flare them, I don't see why it wouldn't work. Seems like you get better results out of the flare if you make sure that there's no burrs or sharp edges on these things. As long as I can get the crimp tool seated here all the way, that looks about perfect, honestly. I think this might work. So this is a rigid flare tool with a 45-degree flare tip. It's the same tool I used many moons ago to build all the stainless hydraulic lines on the Galleon 503. All right, don't want to iron it too much. You can just wear the flare thin. Yeah, looks pretty good. This might work. Just got to make sure I don't over tighten that nut now. Well, we got to even it up, so I got to do the same thing to this other side here. We'll cut it off and re-flare it, and then fingers crossed, we might be able to put this thing right back on. Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm feeling confident at least, so that's pretty good. See if I can't get this thing reinstalled. If you remember too, before I took this line off, I said it was leaking up here as well. And I think I just hadn't used 2 wrenches to tighten it up. The fitting was, after I got this nut snugged, the fitting that it goes into was spinning. So this is just a rubber compression fitting basically. So I think this will snug up. Ho buddies. If you thought that line sucked before, try shortening it like I did there. My goodness, did that suck. What did I spend? 2.5 hours getting that line on there. And now I know I'm good at complaining, but this is quite possibly the most hateful thing I've ever worked on. And it's this big. It's like a Matchbox toy compared to some of our other projects. But that's actually what makes it so difficult. I know I've explained it already in this video, but just getting your body into the position to be able to get down in there, contort your hands to be able to try to spin the nuts and everything, and then, you know, you spin it, you think you're finally getting it threaded, and you make a few turns, and then you realize that it didn't actually catch a thread, and you're just wasting your time spinning that nut. Very, very frustrating. And, you know, you'd say, well, maybe you should unbolt the wheel, get the wheel out of there, you can get your body in closer. I actually tried that on the other side at an earlier date when I was first working on this thing last year, and it doesn't really help you like you think it would. This wheel kind of lends itself to, you know, laying your body across or putting your arm on for support or something. So without the wheel here, it actually kind of made it worse, surprisingly. So yeah, pick your poison. It sucks no matter what. I'm just praying to the machinery gods that this thing is finally going to work, because I don't know what else to do if it doesn't. Let's get some oil, dump it in the reservoir, and try to bleed out these clutches again. Well, good news, bad news. Good news is we don't have any leak down there anymore. We fixed that. I have the left steer clutch bled out again like it was. It's working good. Definitely feel like we have full steering capability there. Well, full range of clutch, you know, engagement that we should. Disengagement, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm trying to say. The right one, however, is still not much better than we had before. Maybe slightly. And it is doing something. I don't want to say it's not working at all, but it's maybe 40% of what we should have. So if you guys watch that bolt sticking out up there, I'm going to push the lever down. That bolt is going to travel from left to right ever so slightly. And it's right at the end of my stroke. I feel like I just have air still stuck somewhere. But that little bit of travel is the clutch disengaging ever so slightly. Not near as much as the other side like we should have. So I'm going to keep playing around here trying to keep bleeding this thing, but I really don't know what else I can do at this point. I just feel like we have some trapped air somewhere that I can't get out. Well, unfortunately it's been another hour. I've done everything I know to do. I've done pressure bleeding by pressurizing the oil reservoir here, forcing oil through the system. I don't notice any air coming out of the bleeder at all. I've taken the lines off that go to the check valves and the return here to the tank. Everything's flowing free and clear like you'd think it should. And I just cannot get this clutch to seemingly do anything more than what I got, which I would call about, I don't know, 40 to 50% of the stroke that the other side takes. This one here, you can feel it's got a good long stroke to it where it's actually pushing pressure onto the clutch pack, as well as when it returns, you can feel it actually pulls fluid from the reservoir, versus this guy, you compress it and really don't get the feeling that it's drawing fluid back in to refill the piston for another stroke. So I don't know what the deal is there, but pretty frustrating. It is still moving the clutch pack, as I tried to show you guys before. It doesn't honestly look like it's that much less than the good side though. So all I can say for now is let's try to get the brakes bled out and hopefully it works. Or, you know, at least if one side works, we could drive it around some, and maybe that bumping and jostling and rotating of the piston inside there, that bleeder and everything, maybe will knock some air pocket loose that I can't seem to get out now. So the next fun to get to place is down here on our wheel cylinder, the brake bleeder. I've already removed the original one. That was a struggle. It does appear as though we're pushing some amount of fluid to the wheel cylinder, so that's good. Hopefully I can install the bleeder and we can bleed these out properly. Much like the stuff we were already working on, you can see it and it doesn't look that hard to get to. When you actually go to stick your hand in there, you find that you can't get there from here. In another exciting development here, it would appear that the bleeder is stripped out. Ah! Turns out the camera does not record if you do not press that little red button on top. But I pulled the drum off. There's a little bit of oil at the bottom of it, so something's leaking into here. Could be this wheel cylinder, could also be the wheel seal. Hoping it's not the wheel seal. All right, well, the wheel cylinder is down there. It's kind of buried and doesn't look like it's gonna be a lot of fun to get out, much like everything else seems to be on this machine. I think we can get away without taking the banjo fitting out and just taking off the long nut off the line and the two bolts that hold it into the backing plate there, I think. But we're just gonna have to loosen the shoes. Hopefully I can spread those apart and slide the wheel cylinder out. All right. So with this wheel cylinder off of here, I'm going to try to put a helicoil kit in it because I can't get one of these master cylinders, at least not readily available. So we just drilled that out. We got our little helicoil here. I'm going to run this bigger oversized tap down through here, and then we'll put a helicoil in it. Well, our threads look good in there. So you got a little helicoil installation tool here. You slide the coil over the end. There's a little tang there at the end you engage on the tool. Now this will just thread itself right down into that newly tapped hole here. But before we do that, I like to put just a little bit of Loctite down in there to kind of hold this threaded insert in place. I think that worked. We just got to break the little tang off down in there now. There we go. Nice new threads in there. Check our bleeder for fitment. Oh yeah. All right, I think we're ready to reinstall this guy. Unfortunately, just like this clutch on this side, I'm having problems getting any brake fluid out of this bleeder. So what I've got rigged up here is a pressure bleeder. I'm going to put some fluid in this thing and put the plunger in there and hopefully feed fluid back through the system up to the master cylinder. All right, hopefully this thing works. Yeah, well, I don't think this is working. Why? Why does everything have to suck on this machine? I just don't understand. I'm pushing fluid, but I think it's just leaking down here around our bleeder. It's not actually going through the system like it should. Yep, 100%. I get quite the chuckle out of the comments sometimes. People will say stuff like, Matt, man, it's the stuff you work on, it's got to be so frustrating. I don't know how you keep your cool. If you knew how close I was to having a full-on mental breakdown over this thing. It won't take any fluid. It won't push any fluid. If that master cylinder's messed up, I don't want to take it out of there. I do not want to do that job. It is buried down inside of there underneath all those hoses and lines and the firewall. I mean, just all of it's got to come out. And if that wasn't bad enough, our bleeder here isn't sealing up because when I did push pressure in there with that thingy bobber, it was pressurizing the line. Like it's getting through, well, I hope it's getting through the wheel cylinder and into the line. But you know, I pressurized it basically and tightened the bleeder and pulled the hose back off, and it was just sitting there bubbling and burping brake fluid right back out. So it's not sealing, so the bleeder's never going to work right. And that could be part of the reason we're not getting fluid pushed from the master cylinder. But at the same time, it should have taken it in reverse. It should have pushed it back up to the master cylinder. So I'm about at my wit's end here, and I have basically zero love left for this machine. I was so excited to find one of these things. I looked for it for years. I tried to find one of these things. The moment I first pulled it in the shop last year to start working on it, I immediately realized that, hey, this thing sucks to work on, and I'm losing love for it. And at this point, a year later, still not having driven it once, I am out of love for this machine. So, see, something like installing that wheel cylinder after we fixed the bleeder, just putting it back in there, putting it together, putting the hub on, that took me about an hour. It only was about 10 seconds for you guys, but it took me about an hour. Fighting everything, finagling it, getting it in there, getting the bolts started, getting the fittings started, all that stuff, because it's all just, you can see it, but you can't get there from here. And that's the way this whole machine is. You can see it, but you can't get there from here. Can't get the wrench on it. If you look, I have like one of every single type of wrench that I own out here. I've got ratchet wrenches, angle wrenches, stubby wrenches, the sockets that correspond to all the wrenches. Every different wrench size I have, like, it's all out here, and they all suck. Like, this thing is just an absolute nightmare to work on. I don't know what else to say about this thing at this point. The brake system has really got me frazzled, and I don't know if you guys have seen where the master cylinder is at, but it kind of looks like the 7th level of hell down there to even think about getting it out of there. Because I'm not sure that the master cylinder has any issues with it. What I can see down inside the reservoir looks clean. Functionally, when you push the pedal, it seems like it does everything a single-stage master cylinder does. The only thing I can figure as to why I can't bleed this thing out is because A, that bleeder is not sealing up, so I can't bleed it the traditional way, it just keeps sucking air. B, I can't back bleed it, theoretically, and I'm not even sure of this, maybe because of these check valves that are in place here. I really can't see why it would stop me from back bleeding. As much as I know if I want to fix the brakes, I'm going to have to take that drum back off again. I kind of want to just see if the clutches are free, because I ended up chopping a lot of footage out of this video, but back when we got this thing running last year, I did manage to get the one side clutch to work. And I had tried driving it back and forth then, and it would not steer. So the clutches feel moderately better than they were, but still, like I say, that right side, not good. So before I waste any more time on brakes, I want to try to just see if the clutches are going to actually work. If I can get the left side to steer, and I could at least drive this thing, I think it would, A, put some wind back in my sails to want to fix it, and B, let me know that, you know, at least there isn't another deeper underlying issue, so that after I fix the other clutch and the brakes, that there's still not some other big roadblock that's going to shut me down. At this particular moment with this thing, I am feeling especially defeated. I don't really care to admit to you guys how much time I have wrapped up in trying to get this thing to work right, but I can tell you it's way more than I should. So I'm gonna bolt that wheel back on there. We're gonna try to fire this thing up and see if I can't get it to steer. And I pray that I can get it to steer. Also, I haven't forgotten, we still need to drain this transmission fluid, but we'll get there. That's minor detail. All I gotta say is this better work. Starts nice. Well, just as I had feared, the clutches, while it feels like this left side clutch works, it doesn't actually do anything. I think that the clutches are just kind of stuck. That can happen when a machine sits a long time. This one has been sitting a long time. I believe what I was told is that they started to restore this thing in the early 2000s, and it's been sitting kind of, in various stages of completion until sitting in this various stage of completion here in my shop. The only thing I know to do to try to break it loose is kind of hook it to something and let it really pull, because right now I got no resistance. It's rolling too easily to try to actually break this clutch loose. That's why you saw me, I'm pulling the clutch back, I'm trying to kind of rev and dump it, hoping that just the sheer impact force of dumping the clutch will let that wheel come free. But so far, no dice on that. There's a tree stump out here that's calling my name. I'm gonna drag this thing outside, hook a chain to it, and see what I can't make happen here. My doubts about how well this is going to actually work, but basically I just have a chain wrapped around the tree, hooked to the back of the scraper, and I'm going to go full speed ahead in first gear with the clutches pulled, and then shock load through the driveline. Hopefully we'll break the clutches free. And if that doesn't work, we might just set it on fire, cut it up with a torch, and put it in a scrap bucket. I don't know. guys, if I go off the deep end and you don't hear from me anymore, this machine is why. It's getting so much better, folks. You see that right there? That's gasoline. It was flooding itself out. So I was cranking it over, holding it wide open, and I even pinched off the fuel line so it wasn't going to get any more gas so that I could maybe, get it cleared out there. And it was cranking over fine, spitting and sputtering, but we don't have a way to recharge the battery right now. Nothing's hooked up. It's a 6-volt alternator, 12-volt system. Anyway, cranking it over, and all of a sudden it quit cranking over, and it's just clicking the relay, which I thought maybe the battery just got too weak to crank it. So I went and grabbed the jump pack, still wouldn't crank it over, so I thought, well, maybe it hydrolocked on all the gas, because, I mean, you can see it was dumping a lot of gas out there while I was trying to crank it. Pull the plugs out, still refuses to crank. I thought, that's really weird. So I grabbed the fan there, put some pressure on it, and the engine won't turn. Isn't that hilarious? I've got it in high gear right now. I can rock it back and forth. It should easily spin that engine over a little bit, just to see that it's free. Locked up. Are you serious right now? I'm smiling because if I don't laugh, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna light up a torch, and we're gonna cut this thing into small pieces. Let it come back as a Prius or something. So I just had a thought here. It's a mechanical fuel pump, and if those go bad, they can dump gas into the bottom end. The oil level was fine at the start of this video. Haven't checked it in a while. Still seems okay. It does smell like gas, though. The oil's very thin. It's polluted for sure. But even still, to lock up, it's not like I was running it hard or anything. It didn't even lock up while I was running it. It locked up while I was cranking it over. I don't know if you guys have ever had a project like this, but in all seriousness, I've been complaining a lot here, but I really am at my absolute wit's end with this machine. I can't get anywhere. I have literally spent weeks at this point to go backwards. We're sitting here with a machine that still won't steer, still won't brake, and now the engine's stuck. So, boy, we're really just batting 1,000 here. Well, a little bit of good news. I just got ahead of myself here. Now that it's back on a flat floor where I can actually rock it a bit better, I put it in high gear. And I heard something break loose there when I started rocking it. And it looks like we're not stuck any longer. So now I got to figure out if it was actually stuck or if it was just the starter, because I might have heard something kind of pop down in this bell housing. And if the Bendix was just stuck on the starter, that would be a best case scenario. Yeah, look at that. That's good. So the engine's back to spinning over now. But that doesn't eliminate our problem of being just slap full of gasoline now. Can't really even consider this oil anymore. Just smells like straight gas. So that's a big problem. That's definitely our fuel pump diaphragm going bad. And this is just the icing on the cake for this whole video. That line down there that was leaking, that we put a new flare on, it's still leaking. The new flare is still leaking, so I don't know if the check valve that it screws onto has some sort of a defect in the taper on that fitting or what, but I didn't notice one. I mean, I did look it over pretty thoroughly because I did not want this to happen. And we're still leaking. we're still leaking. We've literally accomplished nothing in this video. One of the things I try to really convey with the channel is the realism. I get commended on that a lot because I like to show the failures with the successes. And this is definitely a big failure. This is not good here at all. So rather than taking a torch to this thing like I feel like doing at the moment, I think the sensible thing to do. So we're gonna drain out the engine case and the transmission that potentially has water in it, and we're gonna prep this thing for long-term storage. So don't even ask about it for a long time. I've done my best with it. Apparently that's not good enough, so we're gonna revisit it when I have a new level and standard of best. At least the engine isn't still locked up. I think it was just that starter Bendix. That's a major relief, because I was really pulling my hair out. What's left of it, I was pulling out, because if that engine was stuck, oh, you would have seen me come unhinged, for sure. So luckily it was best case scenario there. I feel like it was just that, that starter motor stuck engaged, and everything seems to be back to hunky-dory. Okay, so I don't know if I'll be able to show you. There's a T that comes off the oil drain plug on the oil pan, and it connects into that hose there on the left-hand side, and that comes over here, and I believe it runs into that plug right there, so it makes it easier to drain, which is nice. It's the first convenient thing I've seen on this machine. Oh yeah. Definitely thinned out. Definitely smells like gas, so this needed done, that's for sure. Well, I just pulled the oil filter out too, because I think with the lid off of the oil filter, the housing should drain back into the engine, ultimately into our oil pan here. But you can see that oil does not look good anymore. It looks like it's, I don't know why the gas would turn it like that brownish gray color. Interesting. It was nice and clear when we started this video. Filter housing drained down. Stab the filter back in here. Maybe. Put the lid on that. The filter's still good. I'm not really worried about that. We'll throw some fresh oil at this engine. We still got to drain that transmission. I suppose it should come as no surprise at this point. The drain plug for the transmission, pretty hard to get to. I finally got it loose, but you can't even get your fingers in there to just spin it out, so I'll probably have to ratchet it all the way out, at which point I'll probably get blasted in the face with the oil. I don't know how I'm gonna get this plug back in here. There we go. Oh yeah. Yeah, she's milky. Definitely got some water in her. With the transmission oil draining, I started looking around for both a place to fill the transmission from, as well as a level plug. Basically, I'm looking for a bolt on the side of the case down there that you take out, and then when you start filling with oil, when it starts coming out of that hole, you know it's at the proper level. I took out the one that I think is the right one, but the only place I could kind of find to fill it from was this hole here, which doesn't seem adequate. So I took all the bolts out of this cover. We're just going to pull the shifter cover out. I'd like to have a look down inside there anyways and see if it needs to be flushed out better before we put the fresh oil in. Oh, there we go. Just had to turn it. Ugh. Definitely a milky scenario in there. The good news, from what I can tell, is that there's no severely rusted parts or damage from the water being in there, so that's good. I'm just going to give it a better flush, get some more of that nasty, milky milkshake oil out of there. Well, it wasn't my intention, but we ended up making a big mess by doing that. I was dumping some diesel down in there, trying to loosen that oil up a little bit. And I think I'm going to grab the air compressor now and just kind of blow it around there and force it towards the bottom and hopefully out the drain. Well, took a lot of compressed air, but that looks a lot nicer now. Well, there we go. Filled up to the level plug with some fresh new 85 140 is what I put in there, because we're never running this thing in cold weather. I assure you of that. If it's going to be run at all ever, the rest of its life, it's going to be run in nothing but fair weather, so a little bit of thicker oil won't hurt. Well, I'm actually embarrassed to do it. I really am. I hate to throw in the towel on something. I'm pretty good about not letting things get the better of me, but this one's got me beat. And as much as I hate to, we're going to have to drag it out of here yet again, rather than drive it out under its own power like it should be. Ultimately, this is an overgrown play toy. It's nothing but a collector's item. It's not going to go out and do any work, and it's not something that I would like to sell or flip for some profit. I paid a hefty penny for this thing because it is so rare and collectible. It's not goodbye, but it's I'll see you later. Rather than push it out into the healing weeds, it's going to get to take its long winter slumber in a nice shipping container, so it'll be safe. It's not going anywhere. It's kept since 1947. I think it'll keep a little bit longer. Of course, standing here right now, I don't know how I'm going to edit this whole video together for you, but I promise you that you're only going to see a tiny, tiny fraction of the hours and hours I spent taking things on and off of this thing, bleeding out lines, and just spending my life in general frustration trying to get this thing to work. I promise you, I'm not making content like this just to say I made a video. Trust me, this is the least constructive use of my time that I can imagine, and that's part of the reason I'm throwing in the towel, is that I just don't feel like this is a good use of my time anymore. I have other projects pending that are more important than this thing, so it's got to go. We got to get some of these other things in here. Usually, I end my videos by saying if you like them, to leave me a thumbs up down below, but I don't expect anybody to like this video. I don't like this video. If you appreciate the struggles and have been there yourself, do me a favor, tickle that thumbs up button down below. Really helps out the channel and helps ease my frustrations on lost causes like this one. If you would like to help support the channel in a little more direct fashion, you can head on over to dieselcreek.com, pick yourself up some sweet swag over there. We've got new hats now available at the store, as well as some new t-shirt designs, and of course we got our nice heavyweight hoodies available as we're coming into the hoodie weather season here. Actually, we're pretty well into it now. All that and more over at the store. That's dieselcreek.com. Link, as always, down below in the description there. Unfortunately, that's all I've got for today. So until the next time, guys, I want to thank you for watching this disaster, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.